Today I'm going to make some delicious soft sourdough flatbreads. To get started, you're going to want to make sure that you are able to weigh out 75 grams of active, recently fed starter. So don't just grab it from your refrigerator and use it straight from there. And then at this point, I'm just being extremely careful to make sure that I get the exact amount. It is best when making anything in the sourdough realm to measure by grams so that you are precise and you know that your recipe will most likely turn out. And these flatbreads are so delicious. They do take some time, but they are soft and easy to work with, and they freeze fabulous. So after I get everything measured out, I move on and I put my water into my bowl. After I've added my water, I'm going to pour in my salt and try to get that kind of dissolved into the water. And just stir it around until you see that there's no more granules of salt left. From there, you're going to add a small amount of oil, which is going to help keep your flatbreads very soft. So that gets stirred in. Finally, you're going to put your starter that you have measured out in, and then you're going to just stir it around and kind of break up that starter. You want it to, it doesn't have to be completely broken up, but you want it to become a cohesive liquid at this point, and then you are going to go ahead and add your flour. Now that the flour has been added, you're going to find something to stir it with. I always just use a butter knife. I know some people are really into like a wooden chopstick, and there's some controversy out there about whether you can use metal, but I have not had any problems with it. And so I stir all of my sourdough mixtures at the beginning with a butter knife. It makes it easy to scrape down any of the flour that's gotten stuck on the side of my bowl as well. So you're going to try to incorporate everything. At some point, it's going to become too thick and too heavy to continue to use that butter knife, and you're going to have to get your hands in there. So just make sure that your hands are nice and clean, as you would anyway when you're doing any sort of baking. So now you're going to get your hand in there and you are just going to knead it together until you get all of the flour incorporated and make a nice smooth ball. You really aren't kneading it for the sake of kneading like you would a normal bread. You're not trying to get gluten to form here. You're really just trying to get everything incorporated to get a nice smooth texture, because then you are going to let it sit for an hour. While it is sitting there, make sure that you put a cover on it to keep it from losing moisture. At the end of the hour, you should see something similar to this. There should be some bubbles starting, and now it's time to do your first set of 3 stretch and folds. So you're going to grab your dough, kind of give it a little wiggle, shake it off and pull it over top. And you're going to do this on all 4 sides. And you're going to wait 15 minutes in between each of your 3 sets of stretch and fold. So you'll do your first set of stretch and folds, cover it up, wait 15 minutes. Next set of stretch and folds, cover it up, wait 15 minutes. And then your final set of stretch and folds. And that will build enough elasticity and strength in your dough. So after your stretch and folds, you'll let your dough rest for 4 to 5 hours. And now it's time to divide that dough. I like to divide mine equally by weighing it out so that all 8 pieces are the same. And you're just going to roll each one of those into a nice smooth ball like you would if you were making homemade dinner rolls. And you're going to let them sit covered for an hour to an hour and a half so that they have time to relax. You're just covering them so that they don't dry out during that hour to hour and a half resting period. Now you're going to take your skillet. I'm going to be using a heavy duty cast iron skillet. If you don't have one, a regular skillet will work. You don't really need to add any oil. The oil that you see in my pan here is just left over from the oil that I rub on it after each use. Now, as you can see here, I've started cooking it. I want to make sure that they don't burn, so I am going to be flipping it frequently. You will see air bubbles that pop up from time to time as well. Don't let that concern you. I have these cooking on a medium to medium high heat. I personally like them to get a little bit charred. I like that flavor. The rest of my family isn't too happy about that, so I try to keep flipping them back and forth. You do want some brown spots, so you're stretching out your dough as you put it in, kind of like you would if this was a little mini pizza, and you're going to want to make it about 8 inches across, or look at the diameter of your pan. These make such great mini pizzas. My husband uses them to dip into things like hummus, or if we're just eating a meal and he wants some bread on the side. They're just excellent, and I like having them folded up for sandwiches as well. So these are very versatile, super easy to cook. They do take all day, but it's something that's done in one day, and you're making 8 of them. So you will be able to freeze them and pull them out as you need. Like last night for dinner, we just pulled out 2 so that we had them alongside our meal. And when I run out of my 8, I make another batch. This would be very easy to double this recipe and make more if you have a larger family, or if you just want to have more in the freezer. My granddaughter loves the mini pizzas, so this is a great thing to have for her when she's being kind of fussy with what I've cooked for her. So as you can see, and I'm flipping these in the pan, they are going to bubble up and get a little bit thicker in some spots. They aren't really thin, so even though I've stretched out the dough, they don't stay super thin. They do puff up because of that sourdough that you have in there. It has leavened the bread, and once I freeze them, they stay just as soft as the day that you had them made. So when you let them come out of the freezer, it doesn't take long for them to defrost, or of course you can put them in the microwave. I prefer to just put them on the counter to defrost, but however you do it. And they make great like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. They're wonderful if you want to make something like put some taco meat on it and just melt some cheese on top. Such a great fun way and different way of using up that sourdough. As I finish cooking each one of these, I'm going to pile them up on a cooling rack. Just put one on top of the other and have a tea towel over top of it to kind of keep some of the moisture in. And you will have an excellent piece of bread that can be used in so many different ways. I hope you give these sourdough flatbreads a try, and I think that you'll enjoy them as much as my family does. Thank you for joining me at White Shadow Fair.